person isn't enough to become professionals. So we also need to be agile and smart enough to be able to do a great job. And one of challenging works are the ones on sensitive topics. So we are here and we made videos on German-Danish relationship. Let's watch the first video, and the authors are Nazenik and Vartiter. They have interviewed with Thomas Weger, and the topic was 102 years of plebiscite. And Thomas Weger is a professor of University of Southern Denmark. Let's watch it.
The referendum, it turned a page. Almost 100 years from the beginning of the 19th century until the referendum in 1920. The question was, where should Schleswig belong? To Germany, to Denmark? Should it be divided or not? And with the referendum, there was a cut. It didn't end conflicts, but it ended, so to speak, the first chapter, and it opened a new one. And I was saying the opening of the new of the way to a peaceful life in the borderlands then was opened after the Second World War. So the biggest problems for both minorities was, of course, with the new border. They ended up, so to speak, on the wrong side. They didn't want the border where it ended up to be. So that was both of their, and also their ambition was to change that fact that they were on the wrong side. So if the border was moved, everything was going to be good. When this didn't happen, and when everybody realized this was never going to happen again, they had to arrange themselves here. And the fact that both national governments wanted the borderlands to go away as a problem in the bilateral relations really paved the way for a peaceful life. Because after that, the framework for a peaceful coexistence was made politically possible, and also made financially possible from both government, but I would say in particular by the Danish government. The Danish government is the main sponsor of both the minority here, but also of the minority in Denmark. You have de facto cultural autonomy where you can live a Danish life in Germany or a German life in Denmark, but also live it in a good and pleasant way. So if you are a member of the Danish minority here, you would eventually live, or your children would go to better schools than they would have done in Denmark. You're going to the library. It's a better library than any library I've ever seen in Denmark. There's a rich cultural program where you can meet famous Danish authors or media personalities in a way that you cannot do it in Denmark. So they feel Danish, but they would speak German at home to each other. When my children go to school, they go to a Danish minority school, of course. And the playground, they will speak German to each other. When they go in and have a lesson, they will speak Danish to the teacher. But this only makes the bilingual situation much more easy. You switch from one language to the other without much fuss. The life of the two minorities is very similar. Also because there's a principle of reciprocity. So if something is done for one minority, it's expected that you treat the other one in the same way. This is not a treaty, but this is how it eventually turned out to be. That you should both treat if you expect your own people to be treated nice, you should also treat others nice. The Battle of Flensburg was first and foremost a democratic battle. It was a question of how to get people into the voting booth in 1920, when we had the referendum about the new definition of the borders. And both sides, both Germany and Denmark, thought that this was a prize that they were going to take for themselves. And in the end, it turned out there was a huge majority for Germany. But this meant that they left. There was a German or Danish-minded minority left here in the city. When you split the region, divided the region, you also divided Flensburg from its national, the lands surrounded. You divided families. But in 100 years, when you look back after 100 years, and we didn't fight about it anymore, you cannot argue with that. That was essentially a success. I think one of the most important things was that both sides really wanted it. I would say from after the Second World War, both sides wanted the border to succeed. Until then, it was still disputed. The German minority in Denmark was very much against it, so much that they turned to National Socialism to help them. The Danish minority was also against it. So it has, I would say, after the Second World War, both national states, before their national minorities, the national states realized that it was not in their best interest to continue the conflicts. And then they said, we're not going to make it, we're not going to use this potential of conflict anymore. And that is what paved the way for peaceful coexistence. The national governments. Every year, the history of the Battle of Dubbel, which is like the big mythical battle between Germans and Danes, is celebrated. And only within the last generations, it's not only a national Danish celebration, but now it's a celebration with German participation as well. And that is kind of breaking the straitjacket, breaking the straitjacket of the national narrative and turning it into something that we have together. Because conflict is essentially, it can either be something that you have against somebody, but it's also something which can bind us together in telling the story about it.
Thank you, Nazanik and Vartiter, for this video. And now we move on the next topic, which is on living in Flensburg. Me and my colleague Rachuhi have an interview with the city mayor, Mr. Henning. It was really informative for us, so I hope you will enjoy the video. Hi everyone, we are continuing our interview topics on Flensburg city in Germany, and my today's interviewee is Mr. Henning. He is the mayor of the city Flensburg. Mr. Henning, can you tell us how was the years you are in this city as a mayor?
Oh, it's a very beautiful job to be the mayor of the city of Flensburg. Because you can create the city, the living here in this city. You have very beautiful projects you can create. You can build areas here in the city. Today, or the next years, we build quartier area in the east of the Haber, and it was a Haber, and now we want to build there buildings where you can work, where you can live, where you can live in the streets, in the parks, and so it's a very nice job.
And please, can you tell us what important things has changed during this period when you are a mayor of the city?
We built new schools here in Flensburg, new primary schools. For example, the school of Ramsade. It's a school where we have invest of 25 million euros. Now we built another school. It's called Bildungszentrum Education Center Frölund, with invest budget of 36 million euros. In the next years, we built a new station for the firefighters. So there are many building projects that we are very interested, and that where I've created this project.
And as we know the history of Flensburg, here are living both Danish and German. And in schools, are there difference? You have built Danish schools and German schools separately, or they are the same for both German and Danish?
No, we only built German schools. The Danish schools were built by the SSF, the Südschleswig Vereinigen. It's a club for the Danish minority, and they are autonomous in the buildings, and they are responsible for their buildings.
And can a Danish person choose a German school and vice versa?
Yes, Germans can go to the Danish school system, and people of the Danish minority can go to the German schools. It's possible, but you must, if you want to go to the Danish school, you must identify with the Danish culture. This is that you must do.
And do you find Flensburg is a city where people can live happily?
I think Flensburg is a beautiful city. You have the fjord. You have a city with old buildings. You have the Flensburger beer. It's very lecker. It smells good. You have the SG Flensburg Handewitt. It's a handball team who won the Champions League in handball. They have the German championships 3 times. I think it's very nice to live here in Flensburg.
And in modern Flensburg, people remember about the war which was in 1864 or not?
Yes, it was the war where the area where Flensburg came to Prussia, to Germany. And I think in our history, it's a important date, 1864. But also important is the date 1920, where by election the border was created. The south of the border get to Germany, and the north get to Denmark. It's very important. And I think since 1980 there was a very good living between the German majority and the Danish minority here in Flensburg, but also on the Danish side with the German minority there.
So it means that they can live here in a peace without remembering that sad date and think that it's impossible, forget that date and live together like that.
I think the time of conflicts between German and Danish people are vorbei. It's I think there are no conflicts between people of the Danish and the minority and the German majority. We have no conflicts. We have conflicts in the first half of the 20th century, but nowadays it's a very harmonic living.
And from your side, do you think that young people can imagine their future in this city, and why?
Oh, once again?
Young people can imagine their future here in this city.
Yes, we in the city of Flensburg, in our administration, we think a lot about the future. It's called, for example, that we looking what is a sufficiente way for development, without so many cars, with more green in the city, with more public areas in the city. And I think for young people, there are many possibilities to live here with a very feel or much fun.
So it was a really important and nice information hearing from you. Thank you so much. And we can continue our interview topics as well. So continue watching us. So hope you are well and we can continue our show. The next video is about the role of the German minority. Our team was in Sonderburg, Denmark, and you can enjoy watching an interview with Nina Jepsen.
The more up you go, also up north in Denmark, the more difficult it is for people to actually know we have a German minority. We felt as a German minority that we weren't represented enough in Danish museums. It was not common and it was not appreciated by parents or grandparents if you, as a member of the German minority, married a Dane. We felt as a German minority that we weren't represented enough in Danish museums. They cover the history of the borderland and they do cover a little bit of the history of the German minority, but they, for us, for coming from the German minority or being the German minority, it was the part where the German minority actually was displayed in the Danish border region museums was too little. So we wanted to actually really educate people from everywhere over the world how the German minority actually came into existence and what we are today. Objects in our exhibition that are, of course, from the German minority and have to do with the German minority's history, and who are not to be found in other museums because they are unique. We have, I would say, more Danish visitors actually from the Danish majority coming to know, to get to know the border region and the history of the German minority better, because the more up you go, also up north in Denmark, the more difficult it is for people to actually know we have a German minority. So we are educating them, and we get more and more school classes from Germany who actually want to learn about the German minority. Well, we do want to educate everybody who comes here about the history of the German minority. We are here since 1920 officially because the border changed, and we want to just show how we came into existence and how our everyday life looks like. It is not different from the everyday life the majority lives, but that's what we really want to talk about and get into discussion with people. So we like to go through the rooms and ask, do you have questions? Is there something we can help you with? And with that, more and more people get to know us and get to know the German minority. Right after the Second World War, it was not common and it was not appreciated by the others in minority and majority to have those marriages between nationalities or between minority and majority. In Germany you say Mischehe, which is a strange word, I think, but it was not common and it was not appreciated by parents or grandparents if you, as a member of the German minority, married a Dane, a real Dane from the majority. But for today, also for 2020 or ongoing, you can say we have a lot of intercultural marriages, also between minority members and majority. We have Hinrich Jürgensen, who is our our head of the majority. He has 4 children and a lot of grandchildren, and all 4 children grew up in the German minority, but they are all 4 married to a Dane. So this is a common thing for us now. So there was a development, a good one actually. In the room for the referendum we have a lot of propaganda posters, and they are used very broad in all across the country, in every city, in every location there was, where you of course work with national stereotypes. So you say the Germans are that and the Danes are that, and you want to achieve that you vote for the right party or the right country in this form. So this is where we actually really use propaganda as in form of propaganda when we look at those posters. For the First World War, we know that about 6,000 inhabitants of this border region, Söderjylland, North Schleswig, died, but you cannot clearly say or distinguish who were Germans and who were Danes. There's just the amount of 6,000 people who died in the First World War here in this border region. And for the Second World War, we know that there's 760 members of the German minority who actually died or went missing in the Second World War. So for a minority that's not that huge, today we're talking about 15,000 members of the German minority in Denmark are existing. 760 is a huge number for the Second World War who died. And as you see in one of our rooms, there's this wall with 120 photos of 120 who fell from the German minority. That's really impressive, and you get an impression how young those people actually were and how senseless war actually is. But when we talk about 1864, where the Prussians and the Austrians actually invaded and won the war, this is something that really is reminded of in Danish culture a lot. So the date 1864 is something every Dane can, going through the Danish school system, knows, and they are doing excursions and trips up the hill, where there's also a museum where you can do historical reenactment, and they really get those uniforms on, and then they are shooting on Germans and Prussians, reenacting it. So this is something that is really going on since 1864. One can say the museum is not in place that long, but this is something that is really remembered and also held alive in Danish culture. And when you ask pupils or people from Germany, from the other side of the border, they might not even have heard about 1864, because for us, it doesn't sound good, but for us it's just something that happened in history, and we won, but we are not celebrating that date or that year in any kind in Germany, for example. But the Danes celebrated and hold it alive even though they lost in 1864. So this is a totally different approach and a totally different narrative, or keeping alive an historical fact from really different points of view, I think. We are, as a German minority, a real part in and really participating in the German majority. So we are not seen as a threat to Denmark or Danish culture. In the city of Sonderburg, we have some buildings who are still from the German time. We have this huge building where there's a hotel in it, right over the street, Kaserne, one says in German, which was bought by the Germans when Sonderburg was actually German from 1864 till 1920. So we have quite some buildings who actually were built in the German time and are still in place. So we do not have a history of that buildings are destroyed after Sonderburg became Danish again. They just reused the buildings. They did not destroy them.
We continue our interview topics on sensitive reporting, and the next video is made by Annie and Anna. They are reporting on modern library work as an expression of a vivid minority. So let's watch it.
My name is Raihan Bosniak. I'm a historian. I have a PhD in history, and I work at the research department of the Danish Central Library in South Schleswig. The special thing is that the conflict, so to say, has disappeared. That there are no longer a conflict today. So time has, and other things have done it's for the conflict to disappear all of a sudden. So it's a story which goes about for 200 years. So we have a lot of different works who are presenting the different conflicts, the different battles, and the evolution of the history. And for the Danish side, the Battle of 1864 is a huge and important symbolic battle which took place in 1864, which a part of Denmark was lost to the Germany. The library was founded in 1894 by one of the great Danish men who fought for the Danish cause, and he started a collection of books in his private home. And in 1920, where there was this plebiscite about the new border, Flensburg didn't become a part of Denmark, and he had no more room in his house for the books, and so the Danish minority took over his book collection and from there preserved the books. So for the Danish minority, it has a lot of meaning because we are the cultural center of the minorities. So they can come here and borrow books about Danish history, about Danish culture, about Danish language, and thereby get informed. But as I also said, for the Germans who live in this city, they have a possibility to use and enjoy our library as well, because the books are free to loan. You can become a user for free, and you can use our facilities as well. So it's also a place where German and Danes can meet and thereby exchange cultural relations. We have a lot of younger people which through their schools come here as a part of the schooling and have to borrow books and have to read books. We have a lot of students who maybe not are using the books, but they are using our facilities, using our tables and our study rooms to come and study. And of course, we have a lot of families who come here with children and also older people. So we have a wide range of all groups. Not all libraries have all books, and thereby if you need a book from one place to another, you have this transport. But also, as you have maybe seen the bus we have downstairs, which is a book bus. And this book bus is delivering books throughout all this area. So people who has no opportunity to come to Flensburg can still borrow a book, and then we come with bus and they will deliver at their home to them. We are basically giving them the story of the Danish minority. And the story of the Danish minority is a story of conflict with the Germans, to cooperation with the Germans, to living now together with the Germans. And it is this whole history in all its details that we are teaching them. So to say that this is a specific and a special region, this one, because things are going so good with the majority and minority, and also the two minorities on each side. The Danish and the German have really good relationship to each other. So we see, unfortunately, in Europe and in all of the world, that there are some border regions where things are not so good as they are in the Danish-German border region. And that is one of the things that we would like to also address to the young people, exactly that we are privileged in this border region because we are so gifted and we are so blessed that things are going quite great here. One of the challenges that the minority have today is that this minority identity maybe doesn't mean so much anymore because things are going so great. So it doesn't matter if you're a German or if you're a Dane. So the future for the Danish minority in this place is to keep this identity relevant to new members and new generations, because as when you have an us and a them, an enemy, then your identity is strong. But when you have good relationship, that identity doesn't mean that much anymore. And that is something we see in this border region. But also the future is also to keep addressing this border region as an example for that things actually can work out, and that it doesn't always have to be conflicts between minorities and majorities and between countries.
It was a remarkable experience for my team to have an interview in a Danish library in Flensburg. So we are continuing our show, and the last video made by Liana and Anya is on work and role of the SSW and the SP with the members of the parties.
I think so, because we only have got one microphone, so we take this microphone in front, and if there's something wrong with the sound, I think
we are people with a German passport and the Danish or Frisian language at home. The roots of my party are very local. So we can bring all these local experiences in the parliament. And I think it's the best of, because we do not have a king or a leader. We are a democratic society.
Well, the Schleswig Party, we see ourselves as a kind of a green party. We are working very much on green issues, climate, the environment, and these things. Our main values are cultural diversity and cross-border cooperation. We are a pro-European party, and we work for open borders. So these are the main things we are working on. These are our values, but of course we deal with all issues regarding the politics on local level. We cooperate first of all with cross-border issues, because we both work on cross-border problems, we both work for open borders, so that's the point where we work together.
And I think we learn of each other. It's very interesting. But we cooperate with other parties. But I think there is a strong bond between the minority parties at all.
Well, for the German minority in Denmark, we have a lingual problem. We are recognized as a minority, and on national level, the German language is recognized as the official language of the German minority, but on local level, we have some challenges. We need to get recognized also on local level with the German language, and we are working on that.
I think the main problem in Germany is to understand we are people with a German passport and the Danish or Frisian language at home. So this is a special, interesting case of this political behavior, and we'd like to have our language safe, and I think we succeeded. I think as society matters. That is, we have to talk with each other, to cooperate, to have bilingual marriages, bilingual families. I think this is the start for a peaceful society, to talk and to act. And I think political leaders can influence life, but the society matters.
I agree very much. You can't solve all problems on the political way. You have to cooperate, you have to dialogue, you have to work on several levels, and talk to people.
I think that the Danish language is not a question of minority. All the people here has to speak Danish because Denmark is nearby. And if you talk and understand the language, so you can communicate, you hear the music, you understand what happened, and therefore it's a challenge. The Danish language is a challenge, and I think the German as well.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. We have a lot of cultural events. We have a lot of concerts, theater, political events, music, everything in the German language, and a lot of our members, of course, participate. But it's not a we don't close these events. It's when Danes would like to come, they are very welcome to participate, and also Danes come to our events, and we are glad about that.
Yes, the same here in Germany. Absolutely. I do not like this problems and minorities. I think minorities have a great chance for everyone to have a variety of lives. I think it makes the society richer, and it's good to have minorities. And minorities do not have this problems. Minority is I think it's interesting to live in a minority for the majority.
I agree pretty much with Karin. We have the same view on these things. Minority gives some diversity to a region, and it's a value in itself, we think.
So this was the last interview made from Armenian journalist on sensitive reporting program in Germany. Thank you for watching the show. Thanks to Open Access channel and to our interview partners for their patience. Wish you peace.
Around. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So now, thank you very much. We are off the show now, but I need one more picture.
Before.
One more picture saying bye-bye.
Thank you very much. It was a great show.
Okay, and one more bye-bye picture, please.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As a reward for your motivation and effort, you really deserved it. I want to give you this certificate.